You never make things easy.
Why should I? You never made things easy for me, Master.
Hey, welcome back to ScreenCrush. I'm Ryan Airy. So, is Sabine Force sensitive? Well, believe it or not, there are some pretty huge hints in these first two episodes of Ahsoka and in old episodes of Star Wars Rebels that tell us that yes, Sabine is most likely Force sensitive. So we are going to talk about those hints and clues that you missed, and we are going to talk about why Ahsoka walked away from Sabine to begin with, and it all starts right now.
There is nothing easy about being a Jedi.
Then I should have made a good one.
Yes, you should have.
Now, let's start with the second episode because we sort of get an answer right away. When Sabine talks with Huyang, he basically tells her that she ain't got the midichlorians to be a Jedi.
I have known many padawans over the centuries, and I can safely say your aptitude for the Force would fall short of them all.
So she is not a Jedi. Well, she's definitely not a Jedi, but there is a galaxy-sized difference between being a Jedi and being Force sensitive. All Jedi can use the Force, but not all Force users are Jedi. Huyang is like this old wise master. He doesn't simply teach, he also mentors the young Jedi. Most of the younglings he trained were very young, meaning they were mostly open to learning. He knows that Sabine is very stubborn and rebellious, and as an adult, it's much harder for her to reach into the Force. So Huyang might be doing some reverse psychology here, telling her something that she can't do, knowing that she will do the opposite just to prove him wrong.
Forgot how annoying you are.
Logical.
I mean, she gets stabbed in the belly by a lightsaber and she's fine. Only Force-sensitive people can do that.
5 minutes later. Hello, third sister.
Well, unless you're Qui-Gon. By the way, man, how are you?
Oh, you know, just being a dog. How's your human anxiety and stuff?
Actually, my anxiety is a lot better. I barely pop breath mints anymore.
Do you say what now?
Well, you know, I've been like really stressed out. We're making Ahsoka videos all the time, starting the merch store, and when I get stressed, I have these oral fixation habits like stress eating, and then that became like taking these mints, like I would go through one of these entire things in a whole day, and then when that happens, it's bad for your teeth, it gives me headaches, but now, instead, I use this natural diffusive device called Fume.
Oh, is that a vape?
Actually, it is not a vape, not at all. It's not even electronic. Look, and instead of pods filled with potentially harmful chemicals, it has these plant-based cores that are infused with natural flavors. Personally, I like orange vanilla the best. It makes my breath smell nice. You see, Fume, the sponsor of this video, uses plants and behavioral science to help you trade out your negative habits for a positive one. Plus, it has this adjustable airflow and is designed with these movable parts and magnets for fidgeting, giving my fingers a lot to do, which is also helpful for calming my anxiety. See, Fume makes switching easy and even fun. They have thousands of 5-star reviews from more than 100,000 customers who have used Fume to change their lives, and they switched when other solutions just didn't work. So head to tryfume.com/ScreenCrush and use the code ScreenCrush to save 10% when you get the Journey Pack today. The Journey Pack comes with 3 unique flavors and everything you need to finally be free of your bad habit. That's tryfum.com and use the code ScreenCrush to save an additional 10% off your order today. Now back to Sabine. So Huyang is constantly trying to convince Ahsoka to train Sabine. So why would he nag a Jedi Master to train someone who can't use the Force at all? The show reveals that after the ending of Rebels, Ahsoka took Sabine as her apprentice. But we don't know why Ahsoka would take Sabine as an apprentice if she cannot use the Force.
It makes no damn sense.
Compels me, though.
Now, as far as her low aptitude for the Force, that's because Sabine is a Mandalorian, but more on that in just a bit.
Okay, so why she got a lightsaber if she's not Force sensitive?
Well, now that is a good question. The lightsaber belonged to Ezra Bridger. His Jedi Master was Kanan Jarrus, and Kanan also trained Sabine.
She might not be able to fight like a Jedi, but she can learn to be proficient with the blade.
In the 3rd season of Rebels, Sabine found the Darksaber and Kanan trained her to master the blade. Now, she later used Ezra's lightsaber during a duel against an evil Mandalorian. And in the final episode of Rebels, Ezra gave Sabine the lightsaber before disappearing. So she's pretty skillful with the blade, and this is how she was able to hold her own against Shin Hati. Also, Sabine is a very capable and skilled fighter, and she's a Mandalorian.
I am proficient with many types of blades, and blasters, and explosives.
After all, the Mandalorians are skilled enough to take on Jedi Knights. Now, of course, just because Sabine is using a lightsaber does not automatically make her Force sensitive. It's not that uncommon for non-Force sensitive individuals to use a lightsaber.
General Kenobi!
So wait, person, I'm so confused. Is Sabine Force sensitive or not?
Well, Doug, that's the thing. There are way too many hints and moments that clearly tease Sabine to be Force sensitive. In the first episode, Sabine hears Ezra's voice while she's sleeping.
Remember, the Force will be with you.
And And this reminds me of Anakin's Force dreams where he got visions of Padme's and his mother's deaths. Sabine and Ezra had a strong bond. They were very good friends, almost like a brother and sister, but there are some hints of a more romantic relationship.
Are you with Sabine?
Yeah, I'm with her. I mean, not with her. I'm just friends with her.
But you're like a sister to me.
Which is like totally Star Wars. At the end of Rebels, Ezra disappeared after he sent himself and Thrawn off to another galaxy. So for Sabine, losing Ezra is far more painful than 100 lightsaber stab wounds. So with this strong connection, Sabine might be reaching into the Force and sense Ezra, sort of like how Leia sensed Luke after his duel with Vader on Cloud City. Also, Sabine is using Ezra's lightsaber, and that ties to a Star Wars tradition. A young person is given or finds a lightsaber belonging to another Jedi, they take it for themselves, and that's the start of their Jedi journey. Now, before we talk about other clues to Sabine being Force sensitive, we need to first address how Force users even discover their abilities. So this is something that was never fully explained in Star Wars. Some, like Luke, inherit their abilities from their parents.
The Force is strong in my family.
Others, who don't have any Force-sensitive relatives, like Ezra, exhibit their abilities once their Jedi training begins, but they have some precognition Force abilities even before that. Usually, Force users discover their connection to the Force when they are very young, but Leia discovered her abilities when she was 23 years old, only after Luke told her that they shouldn't be kissing anymore. Most Force users must train to master their abilities. However, some are naturally gifted with the Force, like Grogu or Rey. And some individuals have a lighter Force sensitivity, letting them reach into the Force without developing abilities. For example, Chirrut Imwe from Rogue One. He was able to use the Force to some capacity because of his strong belief.
I'm one of them once the Force is with me.
He was basically Space Daredevil. Also, The Rise of Skywalker cut a scene where Finn was going to tell Rey that he was Force sensitive, and that's why he kept shouting at Rey in The Rise of Skywalker.
Ray! Ray!
Mom! Mommy!
Yes, that was a pretty bad piece of writing in The Rise of Skywalker, but at least it didn't bring a massive plot twist out of nowhere like this one.
Somehow Palpatine returned.
You gotta let that go.
I will never let that go. The line must be drawn here, this far, and no further. In fact, that is why we created the Somehow Palpatine Return t-shirt, which you can buy at our merch store at ScreenCrushMerch.com. Now guys, we are really proud of all the merch we have designed for the store, like the Hello There, the Apprentice Lives, and the classic Original Trilogy t-shirt, not to mention the brand new Prequel Apologist Thank You George shirt. Plus, we are always rolling out new designs so we can share our fandom with you. Heck, even Doug is in on the fun.
Actually, I don't receive any royalties from shirts bearing my likeness, and I am seeking the services of a solicitor, so I would appreciate it if you could.
Yes, Doug, you do appear on this child t-shirt, the Super Soldier shirt, and many more. Shopping our merch store is the best way you can directly support our channel, and I deeply appreciate all of you supporting what we are building here. So, back to Sabine. Now, there is also the whole midichlorian count thing, but Star Wars is moving away from the scientific explanation of the Force. It's space magic. You cannot define it. It's everywhere and inside every being.
Its energy surrounds us and binds us.
Anyone can use it as long as they are chosen to be strong with the Force.
Hey, but Droid Guy said she has no connection to the Force.
Well, his exact words were,
"Your aptitude for the Force would fall short of them all."
I took it as Huyang saying that Sabine is an adult. She's too headstrong, too rebellious, and too Mandalorian to open herself up to the Force.
The Force resides in all living things, but you have to be open to it.
And this is something we have seen before in Rebels. When Kanan was training her with the darksaber, Sabine struggled with the Jedi teachings.
Sabine is blocked. Her mind is conflicted. She's so expressive and yet so tightly wound. She's so
Mandalorian.
Ugh, very.
You see, when Sabine found the darksaber, she was pressured by the Ghost crew to use the blade and to unite the Mandalorians. But Sabine never wanted the responsibility of a leader or ruler of Mandalore. The Kyber crystal inside the blade is attuned to the Force, and it sensed her doubts, and this is why she struggled with the blade. Din had the same difficulty with the darksaber as well.
It gets heavier with each move.
That is because you are fighting against the blade.
So why didn't she want to help her people with the darksaber?
Well, this is because Sabine was avoiding dealing with her past. Sabine is from Clan Wren, an important Mandalorian family. When the Empire occupied Mandalore, Sabine joined the Imperial Academy, as was expected of her. That's where she built an Arc Plus generator that targeted Beskar armor. But when the Empire was planning to use her creation as a weapon to oppress her people, she stood against the Empire, whereas her family chose loyalty to the Empire and turned their backs on her. So Sabine ran away from home, briefly became a bounty hunter, but then found a new family with the Ghost crew. But finding the darksaber meant that she would have to go back to her family and finally face her past. This is the reason why she struggled with the darksaber. Now eventually, Sabine overcame the past and grew as a person.
My mother! My father! My brother! Everything I did was for family! For Mandalore!
She led her people against the Empire, united them, and even liberated Mandalore for like a minute. But her training with the darksaber was the first step into cracking the mental barriers that prevented her from using the Force. In fact, when she used the blade, she might have been using the Force without even knowing it. As Kanan explained it,
Your thoughts, your actions, they become energy. They flow through the crystal as well and become a part of the blade.
Now, ever since the blade was created, the Mandalorians who wielded it ruled Mandalore or believed that they should be ruling Mandalore. This is why it was so heavy for Sabine and Din. The blade sensed their reluctance to rule, sort of like Excalibur. Din never mastered the blade. He got rid of it the first chance he got. But Sabine was able to will the blade to accept her, despite her having no intention to rule. This could mean that Sabine made a connection through the Force with the Kyber crystal inside the darksaber, meaning that she did use the Force.
We'll use the Force. That's not how the Force works.
In that same episode, there are two subtle clues to Sabine being Force sensitive. During the training, Sabine gets mad with Kanan, and then she lashes out at Ezra, telling him about her family. She then kicks a big rock that turns out to be a slumbering Bendu. Now, Bendu is a very powerful Force being that represents the center between the light and dark sides of the Force.
I'm the one in the middle, the Bendu.
Previously, Bendu had helped both Ezra and Kanan with the Force. After Sabine walks away, Bendu rises and looks in her direction. This moment was never explained, and the two characters have no interaction in the show. Now, it would be a throwaway moment, but Dave Filoni doesn't add small details like this without trying to tell us something, especially in animation where every single frame has to be meticulously planned out. Bendu might have sensed Sabine's Force abilities, but her connection to the Force was blocked, so Bendu was indifferent to her, but he still sensed her as a potential Force user.
Your imbalance woke me from a deep slumber.
Imbalance?
Your presence is like a violent storm.
And earlier in the episodes, there is another clue with the Convor Owls. Now they have a strong connection to the Force. One of them, Morai, appears whenever Ahsoka is around. The owl has a connection to Ahsoka as well as to the daughter, who represents the light side of the Force. When Kanan and Ezra are training Sabine, 3 Convors are watching them. Now, I might be reading too much into this, but these two are already perched on a rock and they huddle together. I think they represent Kanan and Ezra and their close connection to the Force and to one another. But the third owl signifies Sabine. We see it flying in and landing away from the other two, sort of symbolizing how Sabine is still far away from the Force, but she's getting closer. All of this might just be speculation, but I wouldn't rule out that Filoni added these Easter eggs in this episode for a reason. Also, it can't be a coincidence that Sabine is the one who finds the darksaber after the blade has been missing for years.
I don't think it's a coincidence this saber came into your possession.
She finds it on Dathomir, Maul's home planet. It seems symbolic. Maul was the previous owner of the blade, and he sort of cursed the Mandalorians. So, by Sabine using the darksaber to unite her people, it's almost as if the Force chose her to redeem the blade from Maul and lead her people to a better tomorrow. Anyways, Sabine never got the chance to fully open herself up to the Force, and Kanan was not able to train her as a Jedi, because a lot of things happened around that time. The rebels had to fight Thrawn, and then Kanan died and Ezra disappeared. And then the Empire bombarded Mandalore, possibly killing her family and loved ones. Sabine likely reverted back to her previous mindset after all of this, which dampened her connection to the Force. Sabine stayed on Lothal all those years, unable to move on from the past. She mourned the loss of Kanan and especially Ezra. Ahsoka took Sabine as her apprentice at some point, but that didn't work out very well for either of them. Sabine and Ahsoka don't get along.
Yeah, why is that, by the way? What did Ahsoka do to her?
I think it's because Sabine blames Ahsoka for not helping the Ghost crew against Thrawn.
I go where I'm needed.
Not always.
Now, there was a period of time where Ahsoka died, but then Ezra brought her back. It's kind of a long story.
Time travel!
When she returned, though, Ahsoka did not join the fight against Thrawn, who was a serious threat to the rebellion. Thrawn is the reason why Kanan died, and why Ezra had to sacrifice himself to save his friends and Lothal from the Empire. If Ahsoka had come back sooner, then Ezra would still be there with Sabine. And then Ahsoka walked away from Sabine after taking her as an apprentice. Ahsoka couldn't help Sabine open to the Force because Ahsoka herself is very conflicted about the Jedi Code. as well as her own aptitude as a master. First of all, Ahsoka does not see herself as a Jedi. During the Clone Wars, Ahsoka lost faith in the Jedi Council and chose to walk away from the Order, and she apparently stopped following the Jedi Code ever since. After all, in Rebels, she kept saying,
I am no Jedi.
She also implies that she tortured Morgan Elsbeth for information.
How did you get her to tell the truth?
Let's just say I didn't follow standard Jedi protocol.
And it's unclear if Ahsoka sees herself as a Jedi in the present day. And this creates an interesting parallel between Ahsoka and Sabine, because Sabine also walked away from her people after creating a terrible weapon. Now, while she's very much a Mandalorian, she never truly went back to her people, not even when the planet was decimated by the Empire, and not even when the Mandalorians reclaimed their home. She stands apart from her people, just like Ahsoka no longer feels at home around Jedi, which is why she did not join Luke's new Jedi Order. It's a smart choice in hindsight.
But will someday be a great school.
But that's not all. Ahsoka is reluctant to train Sabine because of her own past. Her master was Anakin Skywalker, who of course became Darth Vader. Anakin's strong attachment to Padme led to him falling to the dark side. Sabine has a strong attachment to Ezra, so this might be part of the reason Ahsoka didn't want to train her. Same reason she passed on Grogu.
I've seen what such feelings can do to a fully trained Jedi Knight.
But, like Huyang would say,
that is an excuse.
When Ahsoka walked away from the Jedi Order, she also walked away from Anakin. Ahsoka blames herself for not being there for her master. She might believe that if she stayed with the Jedi, she could have saved him. And she couldn't save him when confronting Vader. She never dealt with this guilt, and these feelings are preventing her from overcoming her own past. And this is why Ahsoka keeps moving around, never staying in one place for too long, to avoid getting attached to anyone. Since Ahsoka is so unsure about her own path, she projects her uncertainty onto Sabine. So Ahsoka couldn't help Sabine connect with the Force, and since they kept butting heads, Ahsoka simply left. But now, the Force brought them back together. Their fates are entwined on this quest. Ahsoka will have to confront her doubts and her past. Sabine could help her with that since she already experienced something similar herself. As Ahsoka changes and accepts her role as a master, she will help Sabine use the Force and even become a Jedi.
A Jedi! What do you know?
Sabine's Force connection to Ezra might even be the key to them finding him. From the trailers, we see that at some point they will encounter the Purrgil. Now, these are the space whales that can travel through hyperspace, and Ezra used them to send himself and Thrawn to another galaxy. Ezra made a connection with them, and Sabine is connected to Ezra, so with that bond, Sabine could connect to the Purrgil. And with Ahsoka's help, this could be how they ultimately find Ezra. From the trailers, we also see that Sabine and Shin will have a rematch. It looks like Sabine will try to use the Force, but as Shin says here,
You have no power.
she has no Force abilities. And this might be the moment where Sabine finally uses the Force to defeat Shin. Or it might go the other way, with Sabine standing up and saying that she has no abilities, but she's still a badass Mandalorian that can kick her Force-using butt. But ultimately, Sabine might not be Force sensitive at all. I don't really want to contradict our whole video here, but if that would be the case, then I'm fine with it. She's a great character, a badass Mandalorian, and she's pretty awesome even without the Force. And a show about a Jedi Knight and a Mandalorian going off on an adventure sounds perfect to me. But because of all the hints and teases, I do believe that Sabine will be revealed as Force sensitive. And just a reminder everyone, to create good habits today, head to tryfum.com and use the code ScreenCrush to save an additional 10% off your order today. But what do you guys think of this? Is Sabine Force sensitive? Do you like that she's Force sensitive? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below or at me on Twitter. And if it's your first time here, welcome to the channel. Please subscribe, smash that bell for alerts. For ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy.